Hello, everyone. Um,
Hello.
I'm going to briefly just to share the screen just to introduce the topic today, and then we go back to this split screen here. Uh, Everyone is allowed to share the screen right now if you want, but let me just share mine. Yeah, and yep, I just got it. So there you go. Oh, okay. So the topic today, by the way, this was something else I was looking at. Anyway, don't worry about this. Well, let me put the APT here. So the topic today is applying exams during COVID. So what did you have to do and what has been working for you to apply the exams now in this virtual mode of teaching? Or if you're doing that face to face, I don't know. Maybe some of us are still even doing lecture tests face to face. So let us know. Um, and I just posted here what are our future meetings. We have one in November 13, another one on December 4th. And if you are interested in joining our email list or access our Slack account or access the resources compiled during the TUAC Zoom meeting, you go to our TUAC website, which can be accessed via the APT website anyway, but here's the direct URL. And if you're interested in the APT virtual coffee hours, because they have weekly meetings on Tuesdays, then you go to this website. All this can be found at the APT website. If you go to APT website and make a search for, say, two-year college committee or APT virtual coffee, you will find this information and you can find where to how to access the Zoom meetings and etc. For us, for our Zoom meeting, the way to access our Zoom meetings is you have to be in our email list. Okay. All right. So today, then, our topic is our applying exams during COVID. Um, because I have my computer over here and people are coming in slowly. Um, well, let me see. Let me just show you. This is my lab test I applied recently. Please don't criticize like the specifics of the question. Or you never know who you are teaching exactly. But this was, for instance, for algebra-based physics, and so I'm doing questions like this is Blackboard, and the kids say there's a question, and they have to scan and answer this. So this was the easy way I found. And I give them a lot of time because a lab midterm is open book, open notes. This is very different from a lecture test. I'm just showing an example. I'm just checking in the lab midterm, like if they really know the basics of mechanics they've learned so far. I'm asking them to complete a table, then I'm asking them to draw equations and all. This lab midterms have been easy and have worked like this, thank goodness. And they have to make plots and they have to just upload pictures and things and just answer specific questions. And then I do some questions saying pivot. So I tell them now this exercise in pivot, you go there and say in pivot, say for instance, lab midterm 1, pivot has some exercises that could very well work like parts of a midterm. This one has lots of multiple choice questions and it's just, shape of a graph. This is my algebra-based mechanics course. And there's another one about friction, and we did some friction ourselves, but this one we haven't done ourselves together. So this one is a new one for them to do on their own. It's just the car sliding on the ice anyway. So that's what it is. So then they have to produce, oh, this is the car actually. I clicked on the wrong one. So anyway, so they have to do, and they have to answer this. And from the graph, they have to answer what is the coefficient of friction. This part has been working well. Concerning the lecture tests is still, the lecture tests are a work in progress. Yeah, and if so, you guys tell me, and if we search for cheaters, we'll find cheaters. So it's all about what is the focus to, and well, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and let's open the conversation to everyone. How has it been with tests? And if you can actually raise your hand on, it can be the virtual hand here. If you see there's on the participants box there, or on the, yeah, on the participants box, yes. You have the, if you open the participant mode there, you can use that little cursor. Oh, now I cannot find that. Where is it? The raise, people, can you help me? Where's the raise hand? This is not what I use. I don't use Zoom for the classes. I use Blackboard.
It is under the participants list, Glenda.
And is more. Okay, you go in the participants list, and then there's a little icon says more, and there's a way for you to raise your hand so that I have an idea of sequence if you want to talk on in sequence. But right now we can start to with anyone would like to share their experience. I know Janet has would like to perhaps share. Do we have anybody from Harper College here as well? I don't know if our colleague Reagan was able to come. Reagan has, she has family, has the kids have activities always on Fridays, right? So it's hard, but if the weather gets worse, then she'll be free to come. But Janet perhaps can share later what is happening with Harper College, and that's where Reagan is too, and how they're being very clever on tests and lab activities and all to make things very original and prevent, well, cheating and really probing what the students learning on their own. Probing, the words I chose to use. Anybody would like to share their experience so far?
Glenda, Phil here from San Diego. Actually, I've got a question for you because it looks like you're having students upload diagrams, free body diagrams, graphs, and so on. And I presume they're taking a picture with their phone and uploading it either as a JPEG or a PDF. Whenever I've had my students, my tech-savvy students, try to do that, I end up with pictures that are upside down, back to front, dimly lit, out of focus. And so I find it takes up a lot of my time. I have to get their attention, I have to give them a 0. And then the comment is, you need to resubmit this because I'm not going to do your photo processing for you. So I'm just wondering if you have any advice as to how to get students to, I tell them, show your work in its best light. Pun on that, because it's usually very dim.
Okay, so I have a mock test, and where I asked them to try certain things beforehand, and this is not available anymore because they tried before. And also I go through them with this. I made a little sequence of how-to things, and one of the how-to, and I go over this at the beginning of the semester, and then I just refer, you go back to this. For instance, I created this little thing. For me, this has worked for me, like how to scan assignments properly, and I put pictures like not good, too dark, great. I don't know. It has worked a little bit. It doesn't prevent some cases, some people just ignore. I mean, even if I'm teaching and explaining, they're, I don't know, distracted. And there's always those cases, but it has been much less than I thought it was going to be. And, it's getting better. I tend to see as the glass half full here. So you're not gonna get yeah, I think things are getting better. That's my point of view. You try your best you can, but there's always going to be some exceptions, but I don't think it has been too many, and it's getting better.
Thank you. Yeah, I like the counter examples. I think that helps a lot. You can because then you can point to them. You can say your submission looks like this piece of junk that I said is bad. So that will
still happen even with the best kids, that they are sending things. Yeah, it's so some I tend to grade in Blackboard. In Blackboard, actually worse than that. That other grade book. What is it called? The one that one of our colleagues has talked so much about. Now names are, but there's another.
Canvas? You're talking?
No, it's not in. It's not a learning system, but there's another grading software. GradeScope. Thank you. Yeah, website, right, where you can upload everything. And GradeScope allows you to turn and do a lot more things. And the other day, I think one of our meetings, I was saying, oh, I think Blackboard does pretty much everything, and it does a lot, but the flipping it doesn't do. So yeah. So has been a couple cases where I had to get the picture out and flip myself on a separate file and then send to the student later. But then I warned the student, like, you have to go through this trial. You have to send me whatever you're doing now to scan things is not working right. Do it again, try it with me again, and I'll tell you, upload something soon, and I'll tell you when it works. So yeah, there has been, but at least there's always an option where they can try this beforehand. And when they're complicated cases, you make them try several times with you, and you have to keep watching. Yeah. There are kids that use AirDrop sometimes, and it's very hard to open, because when you use AirDrop, it brings the picture, it brings the file, change the file name to that HEIC termination. I don't know if you've ever seen, and it's really weird to work with that. So sometimes I have trouble opening that. And yeah, so there are issues, and there's so many systems that it's hard to control. There will be issues, but it's a lot less than I thought it was going to be. Anybody else would like to share issues or things that have been working well concerning exams? Michael.
Yes, I just finished grading my first exam for the mechanics class and E&M class. And one thing I tried new is it's having the students write, not just solve problems, because we all know that they can get the solution from Chegg. But I found out that a lot of my students can't write even what they did. So one example is, and I didn't do this for all the problems, I'm using it as a test. I asked them to find the angle between two vectors, and then part C of that problem was, well, explain to me a different method you would use to find the angle between two vectors not related to what how you solve the problem in part A. And you'd be surprised some of the ingenuity of the students trying to find from anything from graphing them and using a protractor to, if they use the dot product, using this cross product and vice versa. But that seemed to work. The other thing I did is I had them solve a problem without using any numbers. Explain to me in your own words how you would solve this problem without actually solving this problem. So no numbers were given. In bullet list, if they wanted, what are the concepts you would use? What is the math skills you would use? How would you check your answer? And that seemed to work. I noticed that there wasn't much of a difference in the grades. The good students in my E&M class did about the same. The not so good students did about the same. And there were actually a couple of students who did better on the writing than on the computational part. So I think that's something that I will continue to do. Grading is a lot longer for those tougher problems, obviously. But I think the completely, the exam being not completely accessible by Chegg helped the students. And I made one question available at a time, so they did not know what the next question was till they submitted the question, and they couldn't go back.
So it was a mix. There were some numerical questions and some analytical, but then also some writing. Yeah. Okay. Anybody would like to share their experience so far concerning tests and exams, positive or negative?
I have a question for Michael. Do you notice a difference between the men and women in the class when you ask for a written response, verbal response?
I laugh for two reasons. One, yes, the handwriting of the women typically is much, much more legible than the men in my class for some reason. I think they're all pre-doctors or want to be doctors, so their handwriting is very, very not very carefully written. The other thing is I only have about 4 females in all of my classes, so you get to know that this is, say, Crystal's handwriting after you collect Crystal's work for 4 weeks and then you take a test. So yeah. But the good thing is when I have them do what Glenda did is scan their work and upload it without having names on it. So that allows me to grade the work without guessing at whose work I'm trying, unless it's Crystal's work, because she's the only female in my E&M class. So there's no guessing there.
Any other volunteer would like to share? It's like sharing experiences here. About exams?
I think I want to go.
Yes, Anthony.
My internet has been a little unstable here, but yeah, so I'm hoping to give a second exam. I just did the first two. I'm teaching 4B and 4A, which is calc-based physics, mechanics, and then you have E&M. So my celebrations of knowledge, as we TYC people call them, are usually kind of a 3-hour affair if I'm in person. Now I have had to kind of bring it down to 8 minutes because our lectures are 85 minutes or something like that. And so I did that maybe 3 weeks ago. That was my first exam. And so I cut down my questions to out of 50 points. Try to make them uncheckable, which is really hard because I'm not very original. But I had just to change a few things about how my previous test questions were. I mean, you just change the names and change a few things here and there. And my colleague checked whether they were checking it. And there were very few that checked in the mechanics section. And then I made the mistake that instead of 50 questions, I had 55. So I had to give them a bonus of 5 points. And so they did fairly okay. And I was pretty happy with that because I had given them, I like to give them a pre-test where they kind of practice and then they.
So Tony, but these are multiple choice questions then, or you get their work?
I moved out of multiple choice. In an in-person class, I would have some multiple choice questions. I would have a long answer questions. I had a variety of things a variety of questions when I was doing in-person classes. But now I moved out of multiple choice entirely. So it was only going to be grading on Canvas. Some of it was
55
good. I mean,
questions? Hold on, I'm just trying to imagine 55 questions in 85 minutes.
You missed that 50 points rather than 100 points. No. It's nearly impossible. Yeah,
Okay,
it was probably, if I look at the questions, they were probably 10-ish or 9-ish, something like that.
Okay, got it. Yeah, because I was like,
no, 50 points is what I was saying, and I converted that to 100. But so here are the things that I would like to change. I guess continue. I guess I would like to have them do force diagrams, motion diagrams, and those kinds of things that are not checkable, and also drawing things more and basically trying to show their work a lot more in these settings. But I would also love to increase their time a little bit. I felt that they were under a time crunch, but it's still a work in progress. Because you have to basically get 2 tests, and it's a different institution, so I can't just use my redo my test. It's like coming up with a whole different test and then the other test. So it's a lot of work for me, and I still have to grade some other stuff. So, but we're making it work. So I appreciate some ideas about that.
Hasn't it been a lot more work to create tests now? Because in a sense, we have to do things from scratch also. Right? Anybody else would like to go? Force diagrams, phasor diagrams. Hey, hello, Frank. Go ahead.
Hi there. One of the things that I do is to make them a little harder to Google the answer is I don't give them any text. It's I make an image, a JPEG of the question. So there's some text in the question, but I try to keep it. I used to really explain the situation in words, and now I have very few words and I have a diagram. And so the student, if they wanted to search it, would have to put the problem into their own words. Now, of course, all of us would probably put the problem into similar words and be able to find something, but the students have a little trouble with that, right? So, in order for them to search it, they'd have to actually describe the problem, and then they'd have to type it in, which takes a few seconds longer too. So even the text that I include is part of the JPEG. It's just a JPEG. It's as little text as possible, an image, and I try to do a lot of things symbolically and leave it in terms of variables, which makes it much easier to grade anyway. So those are just a couple of little things. I was hoping to hear somebody a couple of weeks ago. I haven't been able to join the meetings, but I was reading the recap and talked about giving oral exams. I'm wondering if anybody here is doing that, because I would love to hear more about that.
Let's see, we have one of our colleagues right here who was doing, let's see, did he just leave? No, Joe, weren't you doing orals? Yeah.
Yeah, I've taken the plunge, and I rack myself with fear and before I try something radical like this, and I almost talked myself out of it, but I said, to hell with it, we're going to do it this time. And so here's what I'm doing. I'm only doing it in my 2 physics sections. I'm not doing it this way with my astronomy section. So in the matter and interaction section, what I'm doing for each chapter is I'm giving them a list of suggested problems. And I'm asking that they write up their solutions in LaTeX and have them ready to go on Overleaf. Every problem requires an accompanying GlowScript code, if for nothing else, than just to crunch the numbers in situations where a numerical solution is warranted. The other situation being a computational problem where the whole problem is essentially done with GlowScript. And of course, GlowScript doesn't do symbolic algebra. So if it's a symbolic manipulation problem, there's no GlowScript component. But they don't know. So when they come for a 20-minute interview, which is scheduled in advance via email back and forthing, they get a 20-minute time slot. And then they have no idea what I'm going to ask them, other than they know that it's probably going to be something about the suggested problem. Now, one student didn't get the hint, and he had done none of these suggested problems. And so I said, all right. He said, oh, so suggested really means required then. I said, yes, pretty much. And so I said, no big deal. We'll just schedule another appointment. So I usually start by picking a problem that I think they can do well. And I'll say, okay, show me your solution for this. Talk me through the solution. And they will do that. And then I will say, okay, show me your accompanying GlowScript code. And we'll look at that. If I see errors in their LaTeX code or in their GlowScript code, we will fix those interactively on the spot. I will then typically pick a problem that I think they might have some trouble with, either conceptually or numerically, one of the 2-dot or 3-dot problems, if you're familiar with matter and interactions. And I'll say, okay, talk me through this solution. And the results so far have been wonderful. Students are saying, why can't other classes do this? And I said, well, because those people are still, kind of stuck in the Stone Age, and they'll eventually die off, and it will all be done this way in the future, joking back and forth. But the bottom line is I think students like it because it eliminates the need for paper. It helps break them of the conditioning whereby they have to submit every scrap of paper to get a little check mark of approval on. And the interactivity is huge because the students now are to the point to where they say, I don't understand this. Can I reschedule this next week? And I'm saying, you are learning. This is how it feels like to learn. And then they will come back the next week and just nail it. And there's no guarantee that I'm going to ask them the same question, but I usually do. And then I usually ask them a different question. And I reserve the right to ask different students different versions of the same question. So they really don't know what they're going to be handed, other than it comes from those suggested problems. The downside is that I allow them to schedule appointments in the evening. So one evening last week, I was sitting in this chair until 9:30. I'll take it. I'll take it because there's no paperwork involved. The feedback is immediate. I record the results in Blackboard right there on the fly. It's once you get over the fear of doing it, it's a very efficient workflow, and the students become at ease with it. It's just wonderful, and I'm glad Dwayne and some others finally pushed me over the cliff.
Do you share the rubric with the students beforehand?
Well, this is going to be a little embarrassing. I'm not really using a formal rubric at this point. I got a copy of some rubrics from some colleagues on Twitter, and I'm sort of framing this within the context of standards-based grading with very broad standards. I can explain the solution to a momentum principle problem, for example. I can write the corresponding LaTeX code. I can write the corresponding GlowScript code. And so either they get it all right as a package or we reschedule. And I've got one student now who had to reschedule 3 times to get it right. And so it's not too easy in the sense that there are some students who are still going through that learning process. I have some students who have presented extraordinarily polished work, all women, by the way. The women are far outperforming the men, especially in the matter and interactions mechanics. And some of them, I think this is just a wonderful way to present what they know. But I'm still looking for a rubric that I think reflects what I want this process to reflect for the student. So unfortunately, I'm not really using a formal rubric. We do have guidelines like, okay, here's what you should be able to do. You should be able to work this kind of problem. You should be able to do this, this, and this. And let's see, there's a question of there, what percent of the total grade it is? It's 100% of the grade. There's nothing else. And we're doing this on a chapter by chapter basis. So students will schedule an appointment for each chapter. That's how we're doing it in the M&I section. In the algebra trig-based mechanics, we're doing it more on a topic basis. Like this first round was on the first 3 chapters, which was basically all of kinematics. The way it's night, 3rd edition, 4th edition, I believe. So the first unit was basically just all the kinematic stuff. And the next unit will basically be Newton's laws in dynamical situations. So I'm kind of inventing a lot of this as I go along. And I hope I don't screw anybody up too badly.
Because we are all trying, and we are testing, we're experimenting with things, and you don't know for sure at the beginning if that rubric is the one you want to use at the beginning.
Horrible. The guilt is just
Whose guilt?
mine.
Because you're trying, but everyone is trying, but it's so that in the future things will be well ahead of the curve.
Trying to work out all the kinks. So I think someone at the last meeting said this is probably going to be the new norm, and I tend to agree. We're already kind of sort of beginning to admit that the spring is basically going to be a replay of the fall, and so I'm trying to work out the kinks now so that I can do the same things with less guilt next semester. So it's more of a guilt thing. The students are doing fine with it. I'm probably
Do you
struggling.
have that key question at the end, like, this is the grade you're going to receive? Do you agree with that?
Oh
And
yeah,
do they, most of them say, this is right?
yeah, I give them a document at the beginning showing how the final grade will be assessed, and they know their grade by the end of the semester. I mean, you know, there are never any surprises when it comes to the final grades.
How many students per class, Joe?
In the matter and interaction section, I have it's either 13 or 14, which is that's a large section.
Yeah.
In the algebra trig based section, I think there are, I want to say 8 in that section. And those are tech students in mechatronics and robotics. They're not necessarily going to transfer to a 4-year school to study physics, but they're more of the engineering technology students. And I tell you, I have a couple students in that class who are doing gangbusters, and they're like, God, I wish my other classes would do things like this. So that gives me hope that I'm not at least doing too much damage by doing this. So, you know, that helps relieve the guilt. There's a fine line between feeling you're innovating and feeling you're inadequate. And I tend to spend a lot of time straddling that line. That's just my personality, I guess.
Yeah, well, move on, move forward with grit like you've been doing. But yeah, there's always those, when we try something new, there's always eventually the little kid, that student that will say, but where is this? Where's the rubric? Or where's and then that set you
But
back.
oddly enough, the problem I'm having is that some students tell me that they don't feel comfortable speaking up. And so just the idea of having to talk to me is nerve-wracking. They're not worried about the grade. They just don't like talking to other people, which I find that interesting.
I saw a headline about us losing social skills now that we are all in this pandemic, and I was like, good excuse, probably. um, Anybody else would like
Joe,
to share? Yeah, to
I just wanted to respond to Joe here. Just my feeling, not that nothing wrong or right, but I feel like if you're gonna make this an oral test, uh, even our final test that we have, they always bias towards some people who are really good at taking tests. I was one of those guys who are good at taking tests, but it doesn't mean that they really understand. So the question with these oral tests will be that they may be biased towards a certain type of student. And so in other words, you're not spreading the wealth as much, if I may use that term. But it's just sometimes you want to have a lot more to judge a student from based on just the many things. I mean, they appreciate having sometimes online homework, appreciate having a project and things like that. So if you just have one big thing that you're doing, it's something that I would be scared to do. I'm more scared even now that I'm in a new place, you know? It's like starting off with other physics professors. Yeah, you have to kind of level with all those people too. So that's what I would say. But more power to
Andrew, you said that you guys are having some face-to-face classes, maybe labs or lecture as well. And then after Thanksgiving, you're going to change. In upstate New York, they're doing the same thing. After Thanksgiving, it's fully online, but they're having only labs face-to-face. Are you having even lectures face-to-face? Can you do tests face-to-face? Because my goodness, if we could do that, a lot of problems would be over. But not yet. Can you?
Hello, testing, hello. Okay, all right. So as I mentioned, we had began Casper College as all live, you know, just traditional live classes. I myself am teaching all online classes this semester. So the message came out just this past week from the president saying, based on the uptick in COVID cases in the state and the college, we have decided to make the transition to full remote during Thanksgiving break. So other classes like auto and welding, those aren't translatable online, but for most other courses, if you can go online, they're all going online. So that's the impetus for making this conversion. And in terms of what I've been doing for exams, for my part, I've been using the mastering system, mastering physics from Pearson. And so I've been using this for quite a while. So in my exam giving, I basically give an exam where it's 20 questions and it's done over a week. And so the questions aren't individually timed, so they can open it up, look at it, walk away, come back, and think about it. But they're not rushed on that end, but there's still a global start and global end date. So they do have confinements on both ends. The exam questions tend to run the gamut because I'm choosing from the Pearson library, true, false, multiple choice, fill in the blank, quantitative, qualitative, write out some essay answer. I've been pulling out a lot of those vector questions where you have to draw a vector, here's vector A, here's vector B, what's the final vector sum? So I like those questions I can ask in mastering. Make sure the questions are randomized from a pool, and make sure the questions are randomized numbers if available. Pre-COVID, so we turn the clock back, 20 years almost, when I was teaching live classes, so the classical age, I'd always give exams in the semester, pen and paper, but I would have to make new exams the following semester because if I teach the same class, undoubtedly people from this class is going to talk to the people from the last class, and it's like, what did he have for those questions and answers? So I always have to generate new questions and answers for every single semester I taught the class. Well, having had this huge pool of classic exams, I ported all of those into mastering. And so when I ask a mastering exam, it combines both the item library from Pearson plus my own weird questions like, Dr. Drew is running off a cliff and throwing a javelin, something that they don't normally can check on their own. So through that, I try to add a little spice and variety and mitigate a lot of cheating that way. It's not a perfect solution, but it is sort of low-hanging fruit where I can employ all these different little assets and tools to help mitigate cheating as best I can, but still give a robust exam. And to some extent, in doing that, when I taught the live classes, I was still giving live exams, and I started to convert that to a live class taking online exams through mastering. And so I compared their scores with scores for students who were totally online in the first place. And they sort of fell in the same grading curve, the bell curve bracket, F, C, A. So at the very least, what was happening in the live class in terms of them taking exams was mirroring online students taking those exams as well. And I didn't expect any huge divergence. In an online class, I teach chapter 1 through 10, and in the live class, I teach chapter 1 through 10. My teaching style should be the same, so I expected the performance to be sort of the same as well. So there you go.
Thank you, Andrew. Oops. Check. Oh, check. Yes, Magda.
Yes. Hello. I'm just after the first exam today. So I use Connect by McGraw-Hill, and I'm teaching right now the introductory course, the very, very basic. So actually students, it's their first encounter with physics in life to most of them. So tweaking questions is not a big thing. They have to study, and what I did is I did the online exam using Connect, using the McGraw-Hill's ready questions. But before that, and in our school, I work with Glenda in one department, proctoring is mandatory. So I applied the Proctoring software, which is tied to McGraw-Hill Connect. and I still don't know how it works. I'm sure it gives a kind of mental barrier to the students that cheating is not very, very easily. They know they are on the cameras and they know their activities are somehow watched. What I did is that before the exam, I gave him, like Glenda, also 2 trials just to try the software. So for the exam, they will have this burden of dealing with software and the exam questions off. So, and I gave them like about 2 weeks before to set their computers, to upload proper browser extensions. So they were fine. And still a night before, the students were telling, oh, I cannot do this and that. So I gave them the 3rd mock exam. And by the time the exam started, they were able to at least be familiar with the software. So they could focus on the questions. And in the meantime, I was available by email and on the Blackboard just in case something happens. I called it emergency session. And of course, things happen, so I could talk with students and on the spot adjust their credits for questions where, for example, they couldn't type it because it was 1 attempt, so they were unable to correct wrong answer. The thing is, I would like them not to use calculators, but that's the trade-off, because most of the questions, if they have to solve the problem, the computer generates the numbers. So each student has different numbers in the formulas. And I cannot guarantee that they will get numbers that are easy to calculate by hands. They don't have enough skills to calculate everything using papers and pencils quickly. So the ideal situation would be to make an online exam where calculators are not allowed. I can't do it. So I don't know if someone maybe has an idea how to deal with that when the online exams are happening and the computer generates the numbers. Either I give everyone the same questions and then I can get rid of calculators, or I let them use calculators, but I cannot use the computer generated numbers because then I cannot control the numbers. And if they get fractions, they are stuck. At least it wouldn't be unfair, because then one student needs more time to calculate the same problem using fractions, and another who has plain numbers needs less time to do it. So I required handheld calculators, no smartwatches or other things like that. I gave them practice exam, which is not just to practice, but also for me to see who is really taking the exam seriously and when do they start to study for that. So then I see, okay, the student started a week and a half before. That means there is a less chance he or she will cheat on the exam. So the practice exam is for me an indicator also when do they start to study, because they start to ask questions about this simply. So I know if someone starts the question, that means that student is really just studies for the exam. And what else? I told them also, if I see I have to go over their movies from the exam now, the camera scans, but I like the idea of the oral exam. And I told them if I see any suspicious activity, the next exam is oral exam, 1-to-1 session. I'm not sure I want to do it, but I told them at least that will be the consequence. And I placed the group responsibility. That means if 1 or 2 are cheating, the whole class will pay consequences. Also, right now, I didn't want to make them spend more money on exams, but the software that McGraw-Hill is using has extended options for smarter proctoring options. And I told them, right now you are not paying, you are using the basic version. But if I spot suspicious activities, there are two options. You are paying for more sophisticated software next time, or we are doing the one-to-one face-to-face. I mean, on
Oral.
Blackboard, of course, oral exam. And I think that keeps them at least a bit away from thinking that they can cheat easily. Plus, I just told them, you know, I have 20-something years of experience, so don't think I just don't see it. It's the matter of deciding if I want to confront it or not. And of course, those who really cheat very bad will be confronted, and I tell them I will report them. I never do it. I just confront them, and that's enough. So
The speech and the tone you set, they go a long way. You still gonna have some cases going through, but but setting the tone, it already helps a lot. But Magda, you brought something to light, and I would like to ask everyone: are you using any proctoring system?
yes, Proctorio. Yes, Proctorio for the exams.
What about other people? I'm using, whenever I use 11 midterms, I don't do proctoring, but I do for the lecture exams and all, and it's Respondus lockdown browser that's attached to Blackboard. Anybody who has that but has been avoiding to use it because it's uncertain and has questions to ask? This is the time to ask questions to some of us who has tried.
So I used it once. Our system has Proctorio built into it. We use Canvas, and I used it once, and the students complained horribly before we even got to the exam date, because it really is. I mean, you're giving them permission to have to download spyware to your computer that can access everything on your computer. Basically, is what you're giving them permission to do. And they complained about that, and I stuck to my guns. We did the first exam that way, and it was just a major hassle. Every little glitch from an internet connection, all of a sudden they got locked out of their exam. I'm getting all kinds of emails during the exam. I just got locked out. Anyway, I decided I wouldn't use that anymore. First of all, it was a pain for me. The students complained about it. So what I do, I have them log into Zoom and turn their cameras on and mute their microphones. And I call it an illusion of security. You know, it's the students think they're being watched. Maybe that'll get them to do the right thing. You know, I mean, to be honest, I don't even know if that's my student. I've never seen them before. How do I know they just have a friend sitting there taking their exam, or they didn't just pay someone to sit there, right? I don't have them show me ID. I guess I should, maybe. Does anybody else check ID?
There's a photo roster that my college produces every semester per class,
really?
and I print that photo roster. They have a link, like I print, and I have that. Yeah, at least I more or less know. Yeah, I know. I also don't ask for the photo ID. No.
Yeah, I'll do that.
And but yeah, having that general photo roster is already halfway. Yeah, that's my plan B. The Zoom would be my plan B. I've had, luckily this semester, the courses I'm teaching, the kids have had good internet connection and the Respondus worked. But yeah, I had some other teachers who are saying, no, he's failing all the time. So the moment he fails all the time, but also the questions I put in Respondus are more like upload a file. I stopped doing questions I did in the spring where they had to interact with Respondus so much. Now they upload a file, and I count the time, but I allow them to, in case they kicked out, to come back in unlimited number of times, but they have to submit the answers up until this time, this hour. So I don't know. Magda.
If I can add, Proctorio has 3 options: lenient, moderate, and strict. And I use a moderate option because when I look at what the strict option allows, every movement of the head would kick them out from the exam. So I treat it more as their barrier, mental barrier, that they are not there watched. And why Proctorio? It is because it's tied to the Connect, the McGraw-Hill. So I spent enough of time to dealing with that one that is automatically tied to the online homework and online exams that I do, just to also ease the burden of dealing with technology from my side on their side. And indeed, if the settings are strict, then they wouldn't even be probably able to use calculator. So I think after the first exam, I will know more how much the software is really helped, that I don't know. And I also use roster pictures to see if the student is really the one that is in the roster and taking exam, unless they are identical twins, but the probability is is low for such event, although it may happen. There is a policy in our college to use proctoring exams, proctored exams, but still other ways are like making oral exam or taking a group responsibility for what the students do. I think that keeps them really away, at least most of them, from easy cheating.
I was just wondering about the Zoom thing. I mean, I had Zoom on too, but I gave the students an option of coming on to Zoom and doing the exam on Zoom, because I talked with a couple of people in the TYC community, and it seemed like you could just be on Zoom to answer questions, but if they are going to put their camera on or off, it's up to them. Yeah, I just feel like having the camera on is slightly intrusive for me.
Yeah.
And,
I have some students that either don't have cameras with their computers or are sharing space with their spouses and their kids and so that are doing things at home. I mostly look at black boxes with names in them from my students that are connecting via Zoom. And I decided that I just kind of threw my hands in the air and said, I can't really require them to do this because they don't have the space. It's not requiring them to turn on cameras. They may not even have the technology, and even if they do, they may not have the privacy. And I didn't want to essentially economically divide my class into the haves and have-nots, so I just didn't do it.
I did not do it last semester, but this semester, from the beginning, I sent emails 2 weeks before the classes began saying, this is going to be a requirement. The webcam, etc. Invest on one, as we're going to be in this environment for a while. You're going to need this, and microphone as well, etc. Because they didn't even have microphone last semester. So I started pushing that, and I said, if you have any further issues, let me know, because I can provide alternatives. So I was waiting to see if I got any mail, anybody saying, no, I refuse, I really am against. It worked. So I kept, but let's see. But yeah, I think if the tone is set at the beginning, it's easier to push. But indeed, as the process is going, you should then, if you didn't set the tone from the beginning, then, set the tone, or, it's indeed is hard. But maybe next semester you can try, because the kids will be in this mode for a while. And
Part of my problem is that I'm in this hybrid mode. I have students that show up in person in the classroom, and I have students that log in via Zoom that I've never seen. It's very, very difficult. But this was decided at my institution sort of last minute, and they asked for volunteers, and I was stupid enough to put my hand up. And that said, I'll probably do it again. Students like it. They like the flexibility, and it has worked out well in that respect. But communicating what was really required of students, as Glenda said, that was really key. And that part of that was I didn't communicate well, but a large part of it was that the college didn't communicate it well. Most of my students showed up in person for class the first day, and I said, wow, everybody showed up for class. That's amazing. And as soon as they found out they didn't have to, half of them abandoned class and started coming via Zoom. It was just not well communicated at any level. And that upfront, this is what's expected, is so much more critical to do in this environment, that I've kind of had to continue to adjust as I've gone along.
Volunteers to share their experience with proctoring systems or not using proctoring systems, or ways to do tasks. We had a lot of nice tips to avoid chegg, right? Copycats and things like that. Yes, go ahead, Faye. Turn on your microphone.
First off, I want to ask Professor Cascarano, what school are you with? Because our school is considering Proctorio to use with Canvas. And if it's not working as good as they've been telling us it's working, I'm on the tech committee. I want to be able to let them know that this school is not finding it such a great feature before they spend the money on it. Oh, maybe I said your name wrong.
Frank, that was for you. This was a question for you, Frank.
Yeah, I typed it in, sorry. Foothill
Type
College
it in the chat.
in Los Altos, California.
Okay.
We're part of the Foothill De Anza Community College District. I don't know if other people are having a similar issue, but for me, it was a problem. And at least within the physics department, the consensus was the same. I don't think any other physics instructors, there's 4 or 5 of us, none of us use it. We all do kind of the Zoom thing. And then you do have to, somebody pointed out in the text, you do have to disable personal chat messages when you do that, of course. And then that gives the students the ability to ask me questions through the private chat in the Zoom box, which is helpful sometimes.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to share that information with them before they go spending the money. What we're doing in our physics department, our whole school, everyone's doing their own thing because we don't have a system. But in the physics department, I am using, all physics courses are using Pearson's, it's not Pearson, I always confuse the two. We use WebAssign. And Respondus works with WebAssign, and we have never had a single issue using the Respondus lockdown, but we're not using cameras. It's strictly the lockdown browser, which obviously doesn't prevent somebody from typing the questions into a cell phone and checking it. But it is some measure of preventative. What we like about using WebAssign is that at least it's not easy checking, because every student gets a different numerical, a different number within the problem. So they're going to have different numerical answers, and we're pulling the problems as well. So that way, I mean, no 2 students in the class are getting the same exam. So we've got pulling going on, we got the randomization going on. Each question is locked. So they have to do 1 question at a time. So they can't take a picture of the whole exam, save it for next semester, that type of thing, or share it with another class. What we have seen across all 15 of our sections, so this is introductory physics as well as the next 2 levels up, are using this system. And we're definitely seeing cheating. I mean, the exam averages are much higher than they ever were on campus. So that's definitely happening. It's not happening to the level that it would if we were not using the lockdown browser. So the lockdown browser is helping, because it takes time to have to retype a question into a cell phone. But last semester, when I was not having to deal with 27 sections myself, because that's what I'm in charge of, 27 sections right now. Handling, because the people in our department can barely check email. So I handle all the course building, everything. And so I don't have time to do what I did last semester, but it was the same thing that Frank is doing, in terms of, if you make the question, I used pictures. and I would build pools. So one picture would have 5 questions with it. And all the information would be in the picture, and it would be just above the picture in, you know, the sentence of what to find. So I would put all the variables in the picture. So it was definitely not easy. My exam averages, when I did that method, were identical to what they were on campus. So that is, to me, I have found that to be the absolute best method for giving exams online. It's even better than using lockdown browsers, cameras, everything. But the one thing I did find, and I don't know if this is true with you, Frank, when I did that last semester, I was literally spending 12 to 15 hours per exam writing it, because I was making pulls with it at the same time. So one question, I'd have to find the perfect picture. I'd have to put the variables in the picture, and then I'd have to think of a good way to phrase the question. And then for the same picture, think of a different question. And so it would end up taking me for a 15, I don't remember how many questions I had anymore. 15, 20 questions is pretty typical for me. It took me 12, 15 hours. So basically an hour per question to, you know, get the picture, put it all together, and then install it into Canvas, which is what we're using. But I have to say, it worked brilliantly. But did it take you as long, Frank, to write it, or am I just super slow?
It does. Can I share for just a second? I'll just show you what I use.
Okay.
Let me bring it up here real quick. Hold on.
And Chris, this is a different one. This is Twinkie. They're all coming now.
Are they like 7 cats?
4. And they're all named after sweets.
So let me see. Let me find. So like from my last, can you see this one?
Yes.
So this is, I think this is right out of a textbook, but you know, I took all the words out. I just told them what the lengths were and said, find the rope. And so that's, and this the whole thing is a JPEG, the text and everything. It's one JPEG.
Okay.
And then this is probably out of a Tipper's book.
Oh, cool.
So, you know, there's a little bit more wording here. And then, but this whole thing is a JPEG. And then I just did multiple versions of it. So I've got 1 version here, 2 versions, 3 versions, 4, I think I've got 4 or 5 versions of this. And then the Canvas randomly assigns those. Here's one with a projectile motion, and the car starts at the same time and they have to meet up. So so it's mostly, most of the information is in the image if I can do it that way. Sometimes I have to put a little more text in.
Right.
And then they're all my images for the most part. Sometimes this is probably another one from a Tipper with a little bit of modification from me.
I have to give me Tippers.
One of my own. But you see the idea. Here's one blocks on an incline. So I'm asking them to draw free body diagrams, identify Newton's pairs, and chances are they're not going to find that image anywhere. And then give me the equations you would need to solve for whatever it is. So it's all symbolic.
So is it in Canvas, put in Canvas?
Yes, we use Canvas.
Wow.
So for these, I only did 2 versions of this one because it's, you know, a little harder to cheat. And all I did was flip the direction around. So it's the exact same problem, but their free body diagrams are going to look different and stuff like that. And these other ones, I asked for numbers, but I asked for a different thing in each one. So one, I asked for the rope of the length of the rope. One, I asked for the acceleration of gravity, and one I asked for whatever, the linear speed. So they're all, you know, they look a tiny bit different to a student. I don't know, is that what you were asking? Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
But it takes a long time. It takes a long time. I agree.
What you and I have done pretty much very similar things. I did the same thing. I can show mine. I pulled it up while you were here. Let's see here. Where's the share button? Oh, down here. And here. So I'm showing from within Canvas what it looks like within Canvas.
Yeah, no, it's okay. That's okay.
So in Canvas, it just shows one problem at a time. And so here's one problem. There's the picture. Yes, I want to leave it blank. So it's making me take the quiz. And then there's this problem. So again, I tried to keep the number of words I use very minimal. And there were 5 versions of both of these problems I showed you. I just, somehow you change the question. And you see, there's not a lot of words going on. There's just pictures with the information. And I think what is extremely helpful is the questions are randomized. So this one has a lot more words in it. And again, I had 5 different pictures. So I think, there were certain things that were changed, but this problem showed up 5 times. But I think what helped is the questions were randomized. So when their students were taking the exam, they couldn't text each other and say, oh, we're all working on the same problem. They could, that wasn't happening. And each question is locked. And actually, my personal opinion is that giving exams in Canvas is far more secure than using the Respondus lockdown browser in WebAssign. But the only reason why I'm using WebAssign right now with the WebAssign lockdown browser is I have to manage 27 sections and I'm writing exams for 27 sections. And so trying to do this in Canvas would have been too much work for me. I needed something that was easier, yet at the same time, try to control cheating. So the thing that I don't get from Canvas is the randomization of numbers. And that is something I get in WebAssign, which I think is a really good feature. And so I think you and I are basically doing very similar things. So
actually, Faye, sorry, you can randomize numbers. There is a formula. Have you looked at the formula questions for Canvas? You can randomize numbers on Canvas.
I can.
Yes, you can.
Who's I can't. Oh, hold on. I'm trying to get everybody's pictures. I can't see who's speaking.
Sorry. Yeah,
I'm not good with Zoom.
I do right now, but anyway, so yes, you can. So when you're, how you pull down the questions like multiple choice, etc., go to the formula one, and then all you do is instead of the numbers, you put brackets. Like for example, instead of what you have right there, instead of the force, the 10 kilonewtons, you would put bracket and then change the 10 to F, and then close the bracket, and then that would allow you, so if you go right there, instead of whatever one of your questions that you want to go to.
Yeah, I'm just going to grab one here and do it with you. So
and
you can tell me if I'm doing it right.
So.
Oh, where did the question? Oh, I have to go to the questions.
So you have to go to the questions, find one of the questions.
I thought I clicked on it.
Yeah.
Okay, you are making me so happy.
Oh yeah, and I just figured it out too recently, so I was very happy. Okay, so your 2 amps, for example, you see your current of 2 amps instead of the 2 on your second line. So put bracket, open bracket, A, and then close bracket. So take the 2 away and
bracket,
the bracket.
Is that a bracket?
Yes, and then A, and then close your bracket. Take the 2 away.
Oh, take the 2 away?
Yeah, so you're taking away the number so that you're giving it a variable named A. Okay, so take your 2 out. Very good. And then up there where you have multiple choice on the top, on the menu that you can bring down above your question, it says multiple choice. You go down to formula question.
Yeah.
Go down to formula. One more. Yes. Okay. Click on that. And then if you click anywhere on your exam, just right where your cursor is or a little below it, click on somewhere blank. Okay, now if you scroll up, it has given you a variable named A. So you want us to see below your picture a bit. Yes, you see that? So you can give values for your variable A. You have now, you can make them generate from a minimum of 1 to a maximum of 10. You can, right next to it, you can give decimal places. Do you want them to have decimal places or not? And then below that, under formula, you have to define your formula. So whatever, I didn't see what your question was, but let's say you're saying, find the voltage of this given current of this many amps and this resistance, whatever. So you have to define the formula there. So if you're looking for the voltage, it would be your variable R times your variable I, whatever you want it to be. Okay, and it has to be, for the multiplication, it's the little star. So R star I, if you want. You have to have something with A in there, like R star A.
Yeah.
Because you define the A.
Faruzan.
R star A. Yeah.
Faruzan and Faye, this is great. But let me tell you guys, I don't know. I was just Googling. There are videos about this.
Yes. On Canvas.
On YouTube.
Yes.
On YouTube.
Yes.
Just Google it, like how to use
and
this formula on blah, blah, blah. That's how I learned in Blackboard too.
Yeah. Because it is so, because I was writing these formulas and it wouldn't work because you have to put star, for example, for multiplication, etc. But Canvas has also places where they teach that, under help on Canvas, you go and it helps you. Just you put in, how would I enter a formula in Canvas? And as Glenda said, YouTube also. And then it would generate it for you. You can even add things like, you have a plus or minus 1% error is okay. So there's a lot of features in there. So what you had your formula there, you can put R star A, and then it would star A, the A that you have defined.
Star.
Yeah, star is multiplication.
There we go.
Yes, and then you say save. Okay.
And there's the formula.
And that's the formula. So you can.
Now, would I have had to have defined R also up here?
You could have, or yes, because right now it doesn't know what your R is. That's right. You would have, or if you had just written 2 times A, then it would have given you.
Okay.
Yeah, and so play around with it. And yes, this has saved me so much. You can then you see how it says underneath it, offer. I offer 20 possible value combinations with plus or minus 1% error. So it's unlimited number of problems.
All right. So just let me tell you one thing. Just like we had a professor in our college that was very careful in checking all this grading, this automatic grading. When you say 2%, you're going to say 2%. And you're also going to say the number of significant figures or the decimal places that are your final answer. You have to check all this. There will be mistakes because there will be slight mistakes concerning rounding and concerning number of significant figures and decimal places in the final answer. And you shouldn't get 0 for something that was actually right. So there will be, you always will have to do a quick check. Or you can get your students and tell them, go and look. If you find anything suspicious, let me know. Then I will check.
And out of curiosity, will it generate multiple choice answers?
No. Unfortunately,
okay, so
no.
This would
so
be
just
for your work only.
That's the only thing that it is. Yeah, it just gives a value that they have to enter.
Oh, but this is fantastic. Thank you. You have made my day. You have
have fun with it. Yeah. You have to go see some videos now. Yeah.
Yep, that's great, guys. Do we have anybody else would like to share any other idea and tips? Anybody wants any more ideas and tips and is really searching for something? And I'm still in the process of really trying things, and I can't tell what's the best.
I had a question.
Yes.
It's a simple one. I mean, the way I was looking at Frank's stuff, which had stuff that you're showing, does this end up just being a big PDF that you upload? Because for me, my students had to upload a whole PDF and I would grade it on Canvas. Is it just one problem after the other, or just do you guys upload a PDF and then you do the grading? That's what I've
The
done.
way I do it, each PowerPoint slide is a problem, and I make a JPEG of that. And Canvas doesn't take PDFs. I don't think it only takes JPEGs. So when I create my question, I make a question bank with whatever 4 questions. Each question I can, instead of typing in, I click the image icon and I paste the JPEG in there. And then when they take the quiz in Canvas, question 1 pops up. It'll be one of those randomized questions, one of those randomized JPEGs. Did I answer your question?
I think it's the grading. I think he was asking.
Exactly.
Oh, grading. I have them create a
grading as the students doing the work. Is it a multiple choice thing, or is it?
No,
like
it's all. I tell them to get a scanner app for their phone and make a PDF. Some of them send JPEGs in. Some of them do PDFs. Some of them do individuals and upload to Canvas, each individual one, but Canvas limits you to 1 file upload per question. So you have to have some extra blank questions at the end for extra file uploads. Some of them will make one big PDF with the whole thing.
Yeah.
You can have multiple uploads in Canvas.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I guess I just picked the easy path. I threw a couple of blank questions at the end.
Yeah, you can get multiple uploads.
Oh, okay, I'll look into that.
Multiple files. But when I do it, I'm really mean. I make the students use the formula editor in Canvas. There is a formula editor. I mean, I have to give them extra time to be able to use the formula editor, and I make sure that they have plenty of practice opportunity so they know how to use the formula editor. I don't want to deal with their handwriting. I don't want to deal with, well, I did upload my file. It just didn't connect. I don't know why. And those and the bad handwriting that often occurs when they're not on campus. I don't know, on campus handwriting seems to be so much better than when we're online. So I said, nope, you have to type everything out. I'm so sorry, but I'll give you extra time for it.
So Tony, the way I do it, I put my questions on Canvas. The last question is blank, like Frank was saying, and they can upload a PDF of all their worked out problems. The reason I do that is that on Canvas, you can have it timed. So my test has 3 hours. They have 3 hours to do all of this. And the test should take an hour and a half. So 3 hours is plenty of time for any glitches or anything. They enter all the answers within those 3 hours. That PDF with their handwritten work in one PDF should be uploaded. So that's how that works for me.
Thank you.
Wow, I feel like this has solved some, I think this has enlightened some people, solved some problems, given some ideas for others, right? And it made us admire other brave people pushing the frontiers of testing. That's awesome. Guys, it's 5:19 and it's a Friday, and I think you have other things to do too. So I think we're going to conclude here today. It's all going to be recorded. This is all going to be in again in YouTube. Okay, I'm not going to send the email, but if Chris sends a highlight of the meeting, that would be awesome. But this is eventually, the file is going to be in YouTube, the video. And remember what we have ahead: Friday, November 13th, Friday, December 4th. The next one is extracurricular activities for students. And December 4th, what is going on with your spring 2021 assignments. That's it. And yeah, I just had this website, this page here. I was looking at the physics teacher, what kind of papers they have now concerning the topic of COVID, to see if there was anything about tests during COVID, but nothing yet specifically on that. All right, so I'll see you all on November 13th. Whoa, take care, everyone.